All right, halftime of the Ohio State-Wisconsin game. Ohio State literally just took a knee. So 17-0 is gonna be how the first half ends. Not a whole lot to really talk about in this game. Carnell Tate looks like one of the best wide receivers in all of college football, and he is the number 2 guy on Ohio State's wide receiver room. And it's honestly kind of a little sad to be. It's a little sad. He is kind of what Emeka Egbuka was. Emeka Egbuka comes in as a freshman. It looks like he's going to be next in line to take over that number 1 spot. JSN it was the number 1 guy in 22 coming into the season. He gets hurt. Then Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of takes over that role, and Emeka Egbuka has to be the number 2 guy. And then, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. is number 1 in 23. He graduates 24 in Emeka Egbuka's senior season. Jeremiah Smith comes along and becomes the best player in college football as a freshman. So Carnell Tate is kind of taking over that little spot because you need to have a guy that is a constant threat to get the ball across from Jeremiah Smith, to take a little bit of the attention off of Jeremiah Smith. Because if not, they're going to do exactly what Michigan did and has consistently done over the past 5 years, where they have taken away your number 1 wide receiver, and you are going to say, what else can you beat us with? And we have not had any answers. They have begged us to run the ball, and we consistently cannot run the ball against Michigan. That's my Michigan rant for right now, at least. Yeah, not a whole lot to really think about. Wisconsin's falling off, man. It's really sad to see. I grew up with Wisconsin and Ohio State playing in the Big Ten championship a majority of the times. You had the blowout when Ohio State won the national championship in 14. You had the game where Ohio State the game in 17 where Ohio State dashed Wisconsin's dreams of going to the playoff that year and having an undefeated season. They probably wouldn't have won a playoff game that year anyways. But, going, undefeated throughout the regular season, Big Ten championship, and then getting to the playoff as an undefeated team was an accomplishment. Ohio State dashed those dreams. And then in 2019, Ohio State had one of, if not, second best team in the country that year. Clemson was not better than Ohio State in 2019. Sorry, does not matter. Whatever you want to say about the game, I do not care, nor should anyone really. Chase Young was the best player in college football that year. Was not Joe Burrow, even though Joe Burrow has obviously had the better NFL career than Chase Young. Anyways, I grew up on those kind of games, and Luke Fickell just has not worked there. The entire first half, you could hear, if it wasn't overrated chants against Ohio State, it was fire Fickell chants. And it's sad to see. I liked Luke Fickell coming into Wisconsin. Being an Ohio State fan, of course, I know Luke Fickell played at Ohio State, took Cincinnati and rebuilt Cincinnati to a playoff contender, lost to Alabama that year, but you get the point as a group of 5 and really got the ball rolling to their having a guaranteed spot for a group of 5 team in the college football playoff, and that's what we have now. Even though it's not probably the best idea, I still think the group of 5 should separate from the Power 4 teams, have all the Power 4 conferences. You can even add not even the Pac-12, honestly. Keep the Pac-12 in the group of 5, probably group of 6 now, and have Notre Dame join a conference, hopefully the Big Ten or the ACC. Probably more the ACC, just to add a little bit more chaos into that league. But, have Notre Dame join a conference and that everyone has an equal playing field, and Notre Dame's just not, having an off week, and where every other team that's playing meaningful games and playing for a playoff spot is, playing a game and getting injured and having more wear and tear on their body throughout the season while Notre Dame gets a rest week. I think it's an unfair advantage, but, they might lose tonight against USC, and we don't even have to worry about Notre Dame for the playoff. Honestly, that's just my thing. I still loved the fact that, the top 4 seeds last year were the conference champions. I get why that's an issue, but I don't think rewarding Notre Dame with a top 4 seed and having them get a bye and get 2 weeks off on top of 2 weeks of play off on top of the other, breaks that you get when you make the playoffs. That's my rant for Notre Dame for this video. But it's sad to see. Luke Fickell will probably be fired by the end of next week, at the very latest, probably. And it sucked that this Wisconsin team had this tough of a schedule. I think this is an okay Wisconsin team. They're not elite. They're not what they once were. But Luke Fickell's got to go back to the drawing board. And who knows, maybe James Franklin will come into Wisconsin and do exactly what I thought Luke Fickell would be doing when Luke Fickell was hired. Who knows? That would be kind of cool, actually. See James Franklin go to a Big Ten team that's really wanting to rebuild and do another Big Ten rebuild. Now, am I scared of James Franklin? Absolutely not. So, that's also a big thing for me. But, not a whole lot to talk about in this game. Just, I don't know. Not a whole lot to talk about for Ohio State, really. Ohio State still is the number one team in the country. I don't think anyone is doubting that after last night with Miami losing to Louisville and Carson Beck doing a Carson Beck thing and throwing 4 or 5 interceptions. I think it was 4. But throwing those 4 interceptions and costing Miami the game. Like, that's what Miami does. I don't know why anyone got their hopes up for Miami. Games at noon. The Michigan game. That was close. We were close. Michigan really dominated that game. Washington's a good team. And I think their quarterback's probably going to go into the draft this year, if not next year. So we'll see what Washington does next year. But they were pretty good. This is a good team considering the fact that they were not very good last year. And they had that rebuild. And they're starting to get back up to it. But that was the noon game, really. Georgia Tech survived against Duke, which also is a good thing. I think Clemson lost to SMU, if I'm not mistaken. They might have won, honestly. Last time I checked, they were losing, so I don't know how that game turned out, I'm going to be honest. But we got a lot of games. This is a great week of college football, by the way. We got the whole slate of night games. We got USC, Notre Dame. We got the Holy War with BYU and Utah. We got Alabama and Tennessee, which I love. Both the Holy War and Alabama and Tennessee are great rivalries. I get why Notre Dame and USC are a rivalry. Actually, no, I really don't. I don't get it. I get wanting Notre Dame to play competent opponents because they're not in a conference, because they're too scared to join a conference. But it's just like, the rivalry game just is like, oh, we were better when all these kids were growing up, so we should be a rivalry game. It's I don't know. I don't get it. There's no territory in the rivalry. It's basically like, oh, you guys were really good the year in, the early 2000s. Let's have a rivalry game. Okay. I don't know. I don't get it, but whatever. And by the way, it wasn't just we were good in the 2000s. We've been good for a long time. Let's have a rivalry game. It's like Ohio State, Penn State. Hey, we're really good during this period of time, so let's be a rivalry. No. Penn State and Ohio State aren't rivals. I've said that before on this channel. I will continue to say it because we're not. So there you go. But Ohio State should be able to get out of here. Hopefully there is no injuries in this game. Luke Fickell is probably going to be fired by the end of this week, which is really sad. We'll see what he does after Wisconsin. He's not lasting the entire year, I'll tell you that much. Unless Wisconsin goes on a huge run and just wins out and comes back against Ohio State, he's not surviving. So, a little depressing also to see that, no one's going to these games. Wisconsin fans aren't even showing up. They're not even, the student section. I think that's the student section is not even filled up anymore. I used to, in 2023, when Ohio State went to Wisconsin, and that was a night game, I was so nervous for that game. That was my big, if there's going to be an upset, it's going to be right there. And after that game, I'm just like, meh. I guess I'm just kind of, when I see Wisconsin, I think of, the Big Ten championship games where Wisconsin was there, but Ohio State just had that talent edge where, you had the comebacks and the dominations. And Wisconsin still has not beaten Ohio State since, the early 2010s, if not late 2000s, I think. I don't remember the last time, to be honest. I don't think I watched football. I was probably too young to even be watching Ohio State football at that point. But it's been a while. So, and I'll tell you one thing, they're not going to break that streak this year. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll be back for the end of the game. OH.